beginning of Samach Vav. He helped us he helped catch up a little bit. So I'll just give a little summary. So the Mishnah on Samach Hey was discussing a case of Yayin Nesach. That means wine that was handled by a non-Jew, used, let's say, for Avodah Zora, for idolatry. And that wine spilled onto another type of food, whether it's grapes or something else. And depending on how much wine fell, how much of that forbidden wine fell onto your food, it'll prohibit the permissible food. Okay. So we had a debate. Well, let me back up one step. There's a difference whether it's what's called min b'mino or min b'she'eno mino. So that means when you have two foods that are, let's say, the same, now even a mashehu of forbidden food that falls into the permissible food will make the permissible food forbidden. Clear? Okay, that's when it's two foods that are the same type. If it's the same type, even a mashehu, the tiniest bit, can prohibit a permissible food. Okay. When it's two separate types of food, two different species of food, then it takes what's called a nosein tam, the amount of food that would be a nosein tam, which in general means 1/60th. 1/60th of the forbidden food, meaning of the amount of permissible food you have, 1/60th of forbidden food falls into there, then it would prohibit. But if it would just be a mashehu, a tiny drop, that would not prohibit. Okay? So there's a debate between Abaye and Rava. How do you define, what's it based on when you say something is min b'mino? When two things are considered the same type, what criteria makes it the same type? Do we look at what they're called? Rava learns we look at what they're called, what their name is. Abaye says, no, you look at how it tastes. If it has the same taste, right, then we consider it the same species, even if they might be called different things. Rava says, no, if it has the same name, it might taste different, but if it has the same name, it's considered the same species for this purpose of min b'mino. And like I said, when it's considered min b'mino, it's the same thing. Then you have this added stringency that even a mashu, the tiniest little bit of the forbidden food, can prohibit the entire permissible food. Okay, that's the summary of until now. Yeah. Okay. All right, so we're gonna start. Tell me if this makes sense. We're gonna start towards the bottom. It says Amar Abaye Mona Amina. Abaye is basically gonna explain what his proof is. It might be a little back for you, but it's gonna running start a little bit.
Yeah, that's a little bit.
Okay, so we're gonna start. It's about 3/4 of the way down. The last word on the line, I don't know how it looks in the art scroll, but the last word on the line in the Gemara is Abaye. So one word before that says Amar Abaye. Okay, it's about 3/4 of the way down on Samach Vav 66a. Okay, so it says Amar Abaye Mona Amina Law the Basar Taima Azlinan. Again, we said according to Abaye, you base it on whether it has the same taste or not. If it has the same taste, that's considered the same species, even if it doesn't have the same name. And vice versa, if it doesn't have the same taste, I don't care that it has the same name. It's all based on taste, according to Abaye. So Abaye says, how do I know that what I'm saying is true? I'll tell you, the Tanya. Tav and base with Gimel, Shemois, Vehain min Echad, oh, min Gimel, Asur, and Mitzdarfim. Okay, so the case is a little bit complicated. Basically, you have multiple things, multiple different types of species that have the same prohibition, or vice versa. You have different prohibitions of the same species. The two different cases. It's a little bit complicated, and there's even a machlekes Rashi plays exactly how to explain it, but I'm just going to try to give it over in the simplest way. So what we want for us here is that even though it's different species, they still combine. Okay, you have different, let's say, tavlin are spices, peppers. Let's say you have different types of peppers put into a mixture. They're forbidden, and they still combine. Vamer Chizkiya, hacha b'mine masika askiyan, and you should know they're all sweet, meaning they all have the same taste. Okay, they all have the same taste, and we see they combine to create the requisite amount that would prohibit the mixture. We see that it's a problem. Since there's enough here to sweeten up the pot, to sweeten the food that's in the pot, that's why it's going to be a problem. Okay, so what does Abaye see from that? Again, he's trying to prove that we base it all on taste. If you say, okay, like me, that we go based on taste, then everything's very good. Everything makes a lot of sense. Because kula chad taimahu, they're all sweet. They're all sweet. And we go after taste. So it makes sense. They combine. We go after taste. But if you say we go after the name, right, like Rava says, then it doesn't make sense at all. Why? Each of these peppers have different names. They may all be sweet and taste the same, but they have different names. So I see a proof to me that we go after the taste and not after the name. And this is a kasha on Rava. Rava has to figure out how to learn up this Mishnah Brisa. Fine. So what does Rava say? Rava Amar Lacham. So Rava has to get out of this somehow. Amar Rava, yeah. So Rava Amar Lacha, he'll tell you, Mani, it's Rabbi Meir. That Mishnah you're quoting, that's all only going according to the opinion of Rabbi Meir. So you can't bring it as a proof. And Rabbi Meir has a unique opinion. What's Rabbi Meir's opinion? The tiny Rabbi Yehuda Mishum Rabbi Meir Menayel Kol Isurin Shemutar Shemitztarfin Zayin Zeh. How do we know that every Isser in the Torah, if you take any two things that are prohibited, even if they lack the requisite amount, but together they'll equal enough that they become aser? How do we know that? Don't eat any abomination. So anything, even if it alone isn't enough to be prohibited, but together combined with another prohibition exceeds the requisite amount, then it's going to be aser. Now that's a unique opinion of Rabbi Meir. Rabbi Meir holds that two things, even though they don't have the same, they're not the same prohibition, they're not the same species, they have nothing to do with each other. Nevertheless, if you put them together, they will be prohibited. That's, again, when you put them in a mixture, they will be prohibited. That's a unique opinion of Rabbi Meir. But we don't necessarily hold like that, Abaye, what I was saying. So, Abaye, you can't bring me a proof from this case of the pepper, because that's only going with Rabbi Meir's opinion. And really, I'll tell you, in general, we do go only after name, not after taste. Okay? All right, so now we're going to see a new case. This is where, okay, fine. So you have challah lagav chabra. Challah is vinegar, and you pour the vinegar into the chamer's wine. Okay, you pour vinegar into wine. Divrei hakol b'nosein tam. Everyone holds that the amount that you need to prohibit the mixture, again, you have prohibited vinegar pouring into permissible wine. The amount of prohibited vinegar necessary to prohibit the wine is the nosein tam amount, meaning it's the higher amount. It has to be enough to actually give the wine a taste. Okay? So that's how much it has to be. Everyone agrees you need to get to that level of nosein tam, meaning they're not the same min. One's vinegar, one's wine. They're not the same min. What about chamra, legav, chala. What about when you pour wine into vinegar, right? We just did wine and vinegar are two different species. But when it comes the other direction, when you pour wine into vinegar, we're actually going to have a machlokes. Let's see. Abaye amar b'mashehu. Abaye says even the littlest, tiniest bit will prohibit it. Whereas Rava amar b'noisein tam. And Rava says, no, you still need a noising tam. Okay, so we see there's a machlokes. Everyone agrees when you pour vinegar into wine, they're two separate species. So for some reason, when it's wine into vinegar, then everything changes. Then everything changes, and Abaye will say even a mashu. So somehow in this direction, it became different. So for some reason now it's considered min v'mino, at least according to Abaye. Let's see why. Abaye amar b'mashu. Why? Because reicha chala. V'taima chamra. The smell, this is a unique thing that Abaye is saying, apparently when you pour wine into a cup of vinegar, once it hits the airspace of the vinegar, it already takes on the smell of the vinegar. Okay? So when you pour wine into vinegar, it hits that airspace of the vinegar, it already has that smell. And Abaye is going to say, chala, it's considered chala. It's considered already vinegar since it has the smell of vinegar. V'havale min b'mino. So it's all considered one type. That's Abaye's svara. Since it already took on the smell of the vinegar, it became min b'mino with the vinegar. Okay? So he goes with the smell in this context. We call min b'mashu. Okay, that's Abaye. Rava amar b'noisein tam. Rava says, what are you talking about? It takes enough wine here to prepare the vinegar. You need the amount of noising tam, because they're not the same species, right? Okay, it's true. The smell might be vinegar-like. The wine might now smell like vinegar, but v'taima chamra, the taste is still wine. Chamra, it's considered wine. V'havale min b'she'eno mino. It's two separate types of species. The kol min b'she'eno mino b'noisein tam. And when you have two different types of species, then you need that amount enough to give the permissible mixture a taste to prohibit it. So we have a machlokes between Rava and Abaye. When something takes on the smell of what you're pouring into, does it now become the same species? Okay. So that's the machlokes. Okay. Now the Gemara is going to continue focusing on the same theme about smell. Is smell a significant matter in halakha or not? How much importance do we give to smell? So let's see. So haibas tiha. You have a barrel of wine, and the barrel of wine has a hole on the top of it. Ovid koichavim bidi Yisrael shaper dami. If a non-Jewish person comes and merely smells the wine through that hole in the barrel, it's fine. He doesn't prohibit the wine. Normally, in certain situations, a non-Jewish person who handles Jewish wine could prohibit the wine. But in this context, all he's doing is smelling it. That's not a problem. He's not touching, he's not handling it, he's just smelling it. That's okay. But what about, can a Jew smell prohibited wine? Right? You have wine that belongs to a non-Jewish person. We can assume that wine may have been used in idolatrous practices, perhaps. Could a Jewish person go and smell that forbidden wine? That's the question. Abaye Amar, right? We said Abaye before gives importance to smell. So over here, Abaye says Aser, right? Abaye Amar Aser. Because Reicha Milsihi, the smell is a significant matter. Reicha is a Milsihi. Okay, so Abaye gives significance to the smell. Rava Amar Mutter, but Rava, however, says that it's going to be permissible. Why? Because Reicha Lav Milsihi. smell is not a significant enough matter to prohibit the Jewish person from smelling the forbidden wine. Smell is not significant enough. Okay, so now we're going to get Rava's proof how Rava knows smell is not a significant matter. How do we know that smell doesn't matter? You have a oven, and in order to heat up the oven, you use how do they you guys have the translation for common over here? Cumin, maybe? Cumin? Yeah, great. Okay. So cumin. You have cumin that came from truma. It's cumin that's truma, so it's prohibited to a non-kohen. Okay? And now you go to that oven and you bake in that same oven. Okay? You bake your bread in that oven that was heated up using this forbidden cumin. So again, just to speak it out, the effect of this is of you using this type of thing to heat up the oven is that the bread is going to take on the smell of that cumin. That's what happens. Whatever you burn in the oven, the smell is now in the oven. It's going to get that. Not necessarily the taste. The taste might not get the taste, but it will get the smell. Okay. So what's the halacha? Hapas muteris. Even though you baked the bread in the oven that was heated up using this truma cumin, the bread that you bake in the oven is still going to be permissible. Why? Lefisha ein tam kamoin. Because there's no taste. Elarecha, just smell. There's only smell. So what does Rava see from here? He sees that smell, even though the smell here, the bread took on the smell of a prohibited thing, but the smell is not enough to make it problematic. We don't have a problem with that. Okay, who has a problem now? Abaye has a problem, because Abaye holds that smell is a significant matter. So how is he going to learn this case of the bread being heated up in an oven with truma cumin? The Abaye shiny hasam de mikla isuroi. Okay, I'm going to be honest with everybody. I don't really understand what his logic is here. I'll tell you what the words mean. The words mean is that the cumin gets burnt up. The cumin gets burnt up. I don't know why that helps, because the smell's still there.
I think what he's saying, because if you look at the wine and the vinegar, the wine and the vinegar are both there, so the smell is current, so to speak.
Okay, fine.
And here where the cumin has been, there's no cumin, so there's nothing giving the smell anymore.
Well, while it was in the oven, there was cumin, no? It just happens to be in the process of getting burnt up.
No, the cumin has already been burnt up.
But isn't the smell still there?
The smell's there, but there's nothing giving the smell anymore because cumin's down.
So even though the smell's there, but if the thing giving off the smell's not there, we don't call that a smell?
I think that's, well, not for...
Interesting. Okay.
I'm just trying to...
I hear you. No, I hear you. It's a big novelty for me to say something like that. It seems very, as we say, mechudish. It seems very novel to me to say that. Okay, maybe that's what I say.
If somebody sprays some perfume somewhere and leaves, the smell's there, but the source of the smell.
You're saying in order for the smell to prohibit, it has to be the source of the smell is still there. Okay, you heard it here first. Maybe, maybe I don't know. It could be. You could be right. Maybe that's what the Bible is saying.
But the other question I've got on the wine and the whole, can change the whole argument.
Yeah,
because smelling it could give pleasure.
Yeah,
the smell of the wine. And Yain Nesef is Isur Hana.
Oh, good question.
So you could cut out the whole argument because it's pleasant smelling wine.
Good question. Let me think about it.
And anyway,
that's a good question. Let me think about it.
You go by somewhere where they're cooking on the grill.
That's okay. Yeah. But wine, you're saying if it's really Yain Nesef, so it was actually used to serve Avodah Zora. So you're saying it should be also even in Hana. Great question. Let me see. Why are you allowed to smell the good? Sorry, Lomar. Myri she'ain ha'oidik l'chav noisin lois she'ain lo maxik lo toiv the cheskas toiv. I see Taisus is sensitive to this issue of Hana. Sorry, Lomar. The Myri she'ain ha'oidik l'chav noisin lois. Okay, so I'll tell you what I think. I don't know. It seems like he's not doing this for Hana. Seems like he's not doing it for Hana. It seems like he might just be doing it in order to smell to see like, oh, is it still fresh or not? Meaning if he's like an employee for the non-Jew, he goes to smell the wine to make sure it's still fresh. But he's not doing it for Hana. And because I see Taisus over here is saying that it can't be the goy, the non-Jewish person, is giving him payment or anything. Because then he'd be maximally. So I see he's sensitive to this Hana issue that you're raising. So I think it must be that he's doing it as an employee or something, not doing it for Hana. And maybe that actually makes it he's not getting Hana. So I see it could be bothered by your problem. Very good. That's my guess.
If it was used
for Avodah Zora.
But does it also it's going to be used?
Could be. So Yayin Nesach is a sort of a broad term.
Yeah.
And within Yayin Nesach, there's, I'll say like this. In Halacha L'Maisa, yeah, there's two different ways wine could become prohibited. Either it was actually used for Avodah Zora, it's actually used for idolatry, then it's like a full derisa iser, also prohibited to have hana, everything's a problem. And I think that's what we're dealing with here, because I see Taisus' problem by hana, like what Steve is saying. He's even bothered that you're getting benefit from it. Halacha L'Maisa, there's another problem too. There's an iser if a non-Jew will even handle your wine, that makes it into what's called stam yenam. A guy touched it. So derabbanan, even though you didn't necessarily see him use it to serve his idol, doesn't matter because he touched it. So maybe he had the intent that he's doing some sort of service. So that's all. But that's only a derabbanan. That's only a derabbanan. So that only exists if the guy if he actually handled it. But if he serves it, then that'll even be a deraisa, and you'd have a problem even with hana. That clear? That answered one question.
Yes.
Okay, so we're holding again. We wanted to know. We have a debate raging between the Amoraim, Abaye, and Rava. Is smell a significant enough matter that when I take in a forbidden smell, is that going to be asur or not? That's the raging machlokas that we're having. So Rava just brought a proof from this case. You heat up an oven with forbidden cumin, and again, it's truma. So the oven now has the smell of that cumin in it. So the bread that you bake in that oven might take on that smell even, and nevertheless, the bread is permissible. Okay, so that's Rava's proof that smell is insignificant because I even permit that bread. Okay.
Yeah, the other point he says basically that it's going to exist.
Got to exist. Okay. There you go. Baruch shekivanta. There you go. So Abaye's response is that what's going on in this oven? The cumin, the forbidden cumin, is being burnt up as we speak. So it essentially doesn't exist anymore. So even though the smell might be there, but as Steve very beautifully spoke out, the source of the smell is no longer there. So in order for the smell to be prohibited, the source of the smell still needs to be present. Very, very interesting svara that Abaye is saying. And seemingly this is the subject of the debate between Rava and Abaye. According to Rava, he doesn't have this svara. He would say that even if the smell's not there, it would still be a prohibited smell theoretically, meaning in Abaye's world. Okay? Fine. Amar Rav Mari. Okay. Rav Mari is going to say this debate between Abaye and Rava is a much older debate. You can really trace this debate all the way back into the Tanoim. Tanoim, haray de pas tama v'nitna al pi chavis. You take out bread from an oven, and this is permissible bread, and now you put it onto a barrel of wine, shel truma, and that barrel of wine is truma. Okay. Rabbi Meir oiser. Rabbi Meir says the bread becomes forbidden, and you put the bread on the barrel of wine. And I think the Gemara is understanding the science behind this is that the smell of the wine somehow gets out of the barrel into the bread, however that works. On the mouth? I don't want to say that. We'll see why in a minute.
Oh.
Okay, we'll see. Okay, I don't know. Let's see what happens here. You'll see why I don't want to say that. Okay, so Rabbi Meir oiser, Rabbi Yehuda matir. Rabbi Yehuda though says it's permissible. He says the smell doesn't make it problematic. Second. Yeah. Okay. Rabbi Yossi is matir b'shel chitin v'oiser b'shel so'ir. Okay, so we essentially have machlokes between Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda says everything here is totally permissible, whereas Rabbi Meir here says everything's prohibited. Rabbi Yossi has a little bit of a nuance, is that it's going to depend what type of bread we're dealing with. If we're dealing with wheat bread, right, you have to make bread from wheat, then it'll be mutter, it's not so absorbent. But if we're going to be dealing with iron bread, we're going to be dealing with barley bread, thank you, then it's going to be prohibited because it's more absorbent. Because it absorbs the smell more. My love, Bahai Kamifliki, aren't we dealing with the following debate? Demar Savarecha Milsahi, Umar Savarecha Beloklum. Aren't they arguing that according to Rabbi Meir, who prohibits the bread on the barrel of wine, it's because he holds that smell is problematic. Smell is significant enough to be problematic, right? And but Rabbi Yehuda holds that smell is not significant enough to be problematic. And that's what Rabbi Yehuda is going to hold. Yeah? According to Rava, yeah, what can you say? This is for sure already seen as a machlokes tanaim. Because there's no way of getting around it. Rabbi Meir prohibits. Rabbi Meir prohibits it. Are we forced to say this, that it's a machlokes tanaim according to Abaye? Maybe there's a way to learn the debate between Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Yehuda, that maybe Rabbi Yehuda doesn't go so far, doesn't always hold that smells no problem. Maybe it's just this unique case that for whatever reason it's not going to be a problem. Let's see. Oh. So what can you say? Maybe it's not a machlokes between the Tanaim. Amar lecha Abaye, lav mi itmar Allah amar Rabba bar Chana amar Reish Lakish bepas chama v'chavis psucha. Divrei hakol asura. When you have hot bread on an open barrel, then everyone agrees it's a problem. Hot bread, open barrel, always a problem. But pas soinenes v'chavis magufa. If you have cold bread and a sealed barrel, yeah, then divrei kol muteres. The smell's not going to get out. When are we gonna have a debate? Lo nechlaku ela bepas chama, hot bread v'chavis magufa, and a sealed chavis, a sealed barrel. That's what I was referring to before. The debate is going to be either in this case when it's a hot bread sealed barrel, or bepas tzainenes, cold bread v'chavis psucha, and an open barrel. So one of those two middle cases, again, the two extremes, open barrel hot bread or cold bread closed barrel, those two extremes are going to be clear. The middle two cases, an open barrel cold bread or hot bread closed barrel, that's going to be where this debate between Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Yehuda is going to be taking place. Okay, so he's going to say, therefore, you can't bring a raya from this case. This debate that Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Meir are having is taking place in either of the two middle cases. But the case that we want to know about, when you go and smell the non-Jews wine, what's that going to be akin to? Let's see. Vaha didi nami kepas chama v'chavis psucha dami. That case where you're smelling the non-Jewish person's wine, that's at the same level because you're actually inhaling the smell. That's as if the bread was hot and the barrel was open. It's as strict as that case. Clear? So therefore, again, just how this helps us with the Shakmatari is that now Abaye is not forced to say that there's a machlokes tanayim about this issue. He can say there's no machlokes whether smell is significant. Everyone holds smell is significant. The only reason why Rabbi Yehuda permits you to eat the bread in this case is because it's hot bread but a closed barrel. The barrel's closed. So Rabbi Meir will prohibit in that case. He holds somehow the smell still goes through, but Rabbi Yehuda is going to permit. Okay, that's this debate about smell. Okay. Any questions before we go on to the next topic? Okay. All right, so just to go back for the Mishnah for a second, there was a important lesson we learned from the Mishnah that's called Noising Tam Lepagam. When something gives off a taste, right? Again, so if you have a forbidden substance entering into a mixture, right? So if it's enough to give it a taste, or depending on, if it gives off a taste, it'll be a problem. It'll prohibit the entire mixture. The Mishnah said that's only if it gives off a good taste. But if it gives off a bad taste, then it's called noising tam lepagam, and it won't prohibit the entire mixture. It's called noising tam lepagam. Now we're going to analyze what are the parameters of noising tam lepagam. It's a little bit nuanced and confusing. We'll try to do it clearly. Okay, so we're at the two dots towards the top of Sanach Zayin Amud Aleph. Zaklal Kol Shebehan also noising tam. Anything that the Mishnah said, anything that gives off a taste that benefits the mixture is going to be prohibited. But if it gives it, but the continuation is, if it's nice and tam lepagam, then there will be no effect. Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Shmuel Hachi Hilchasa, and this is actually the halacha, right? Let's say someone cooked something disgusting on you're right, you pick whatever disgusting thing you want to think about. What?
Pacha.
Okay, I don't know. Some people that might be tasty, but yeah, I don't know. I don't know. He cooks mouse.
What's the term? What's the term?
Yeah, I hear. That's a good point. It could be subjective. I think what it would be. I think the objective definition would probably just be considered if it's inedible. So like I don't know. I mean, maybe in some third world countries they're eating rat and mouse, but I don't think anyone would do that here. So let's say they cook something really disgusting and they try to, now that falls into your thing. So that it's nice and talented. You're called chicken. It's already spoiled. Let's say. Yeah. So what exactly the parameters are? That's right. That we can ask the poskim, but we can use our imagination and have a good time. Okay. Amar of Yehuda, Amar Shmuel, Hachi Hilchasa. This is actually the halacha. The Amar of Yehuda, Amar Shmuel, Lo Shanu Ela Shenafal Lasach Gerisin Roitchen. Okay. This point is only true, right? You have, again, the case of the Mishnah is you have vinegar that falls into gerisin, I think, or beans, some sort of beans that are on the fire. Split beans. So these gerisin, they're cooking on the fire. You pour vinegar in. Everyone knows that vinegar and cooking beans is disgusting. Sorry? Everyone knows that pouring vinegar into cooking beans is very gross. So then this will be prohibited. Opposite. This will be permissible. It's called noisin tam lepagam. Okay? Noisin tam, it gives off a bad flavor to the beans. Okay. Ava, what about nafal lasoich gerisin? Let's say it falls into gerisin sainanin. You pour vinegar into cold beans, and then you cook it very tichon. Yeah. So when it fell into the cold beans, vinegar apparently actually gives a good taste to cold beans. Okay. But now you go and cook it and it became bad. So how do we look at it? When it went in, it gave a tam that was good. It gave off a good taste. But then you go and cook it, now it tastes bad. How do we look at it? It becomes as if a person, it's like a person who goes, he makes it good, and then he goes and makes it bad. So when it became bad, it already became problematic. You going and cooking it doesn't help. Does that make sense what I said? Sorry, let me just say it one more time. It becomes like someone when, as soon as it went in, it was noisin tam l'shavach. Noisin tam l'hana. It tasted better because of the vinegar. At that point, it's already also, it's a mixture because it tasted good at that point. So it doesn't matter that you went and cooked it and it made it gross. It doesn't help. It was already tasty when it went in. So this fact that you went and you went and cooked it, and now it tastes bad, it was already a forbidden mixture and you're stuck. Okay, so Rabin came from Eretz, I guess. Amar Yochanan lo shanu ela shenafel so greasin right aval nafel to greasin sainin verticha nasa kamisha biak lusoy pogam. Okay, so same case. He says Rabin from Eretz Yisrael said the same idea. When you pour vinegar into hot beans, then it's noisin tam lipagam. It gives off a bad taste to the beans. Vinegar and beans that are cooking does not taste good, so it'll still be mutter even though the vinegar was aser. Whereas if you pour the vinegar into cold beans, it gives off a good taste. So I don't care that you went and cooked it afterwards and it became gross. It already gave off a good taste when it went in. It's awesome. Okay. V'chein ki aser rav dimi. Same idea. He said the same halacha or dimi. V'chach chayu oisim be'arve shabbosos b'tzipuri. And by the way, you should know, what were the ladies making in Sipuri for Shabbos? You know what they were making? They were making this. They were making vinegar poured into cold beans. It was a delicacy in Sipuri. That's what they're making on Erev Shabbos. The Korim Osam Shlchaim. And you know what they were called? Shlchaim. Sounds like a very Jewish food, no? Shlchaim. Okay. Shlchaim. I don't know how to pronounce it. Shlchaim. Okay. So we see that when you pour vinegar into cold beans, it gives off a good taste. Okay, even though you went and you made it gross by going and cooking it, it remained in its isser. Whereas if you would pour it in while the beans were cooking, that gives off a bad taste, and therefore it's going to be, therefore it'll still be permissible. Okay, this next Gemara is hard. Let's see what we can do. We don't get it so clear, then I'll have to put it on Rabbi Glazer's shoulders. Okay, let's see. Amar Ish Lakish. Noisein tam lipagam sha'amru. This concept of noisein tam lipagam, when you put it in a food that tastes bad, it gives off a bad taste. Sha'amru lo she'yomru kadera zu chasera melach, yasera melach, chasera tavlin, ela kol she'ein chasera klum. Ve'en chelas mipnei zeh. Basically, the way I'm understanding this, and I'm not 100% sure to be honest with you, is you have food cooking, and in goes something forbidden. And that something forbidden gives off a bad taste. Now, if it really gives off a bad taste to the extent that in and of itself, it was enough to cause the bad taste to the food that I will now not eat that food, it alone caused enough grossness to the food that I'm not going to eat it, then that's called noisin tam l'pagam. But if there was anyway already a problem with the food, it's not salted enough, it's salted too much, it's too much pepper, not enough pepper, and this noisin tam l'pagam is just the straw that breaks the camel's back. I'm not 100% sure about this, but let's just go with this for now. Then that's not really called noisin tam l'pagam, because it's really another factor that's making you not eat it, and this might just be like the straw that breaks the camel's back. I'm not 100% sure about this. If you see a different understanding of it, I'm very open to hearing. Okay, so that's one shot. Ella kol she'ein chasera klum ve'ein nechelas mipnei zeh. The only time we say that it's noisin tam l'pagam and that it won't prohibit the mixture is when the reason you can't eat it is because of the thing that went in. That's the idea. That's one report of this halacha. Ikad Amri. There was a different girsa that went out, a different report of the event, of the statement, different quotation. Amar Reish Lakish, Neisin Tam Levagam, Amar Ein Oimrim Kedera Zu Chasera Melech Yasera Melech Chasera Tavlin Yasera Tavlin. No, Ella Hashta Miha Ha Pagma. This is saying the exact opposite. This is saying, even if you could say, oh, the reason I'm not eating it really is because it's too salty, it's too peppery, it's not peppery enough, it's not salty enough. Even if you could blame it on those other things, the fact that something went in that would give it a bad taste is enough to make it mutter. Because something went in with a bad taste. Even though the reason I'm not eating this food is because it's too salty, too sweet, too whatever. The fact that something went in with a bad taste, that's still called noisin tam l'pagam, even though that's not enough to make it that I'm not going to eat the mixture. Does that make sense? What I'm saying? A little confusing. Maybe I'll tell Rabbi Glazer to do it again. But okay, let's blend here. We got Samak Zayin, the bottom of Samak Zayin, Amid Aleph. I think it's a good stopping point, and Rabbi Glazer can take over from here. Yes. Okay. Take care, everybody. Have a good Rosh Chodesh. Chodesh Tov, everybody.
This just seems counterintuitive.